I get itchier staring at a wall of sound bars on the web, and the thought of picking the wrong one feels like throwing good money down the drain. You've probably already tried a cheap bar that sounded decent for a few weeks, only to notice dialogue getting buried once you sit a little farther back, or the bass feeling more like a thud than an impact. You want something that actually lifts a regular movie night into something that feels a bit cinematic without having to rebuild your whole living room, and you need to know if the JBL Bar 1000 MK2 actually delivers on that promise. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the biggest question people have with any high-end soundbar is whether it can make a noticeable difference in a typical living room setup. The Bar 1000 MK2 isn't just a tall rectangle with a couple of tweeters, it's built around JBL's MultiBeam 3.0 technology, which means the drivers fire sound in multiple directions to create a wider soundstage. In practice, that translates to a more convincing surround feel even if you don't have rear speakers. I tried it in a medium-sized family room about 13 by 15 feet with a 55-inch 4K TV mounted at eye level. When I put on a dialogue-heavy drama, the names and whispers stayed clear even when I moved to the far corner of the couch. That's the SmartDetails processing at work, pulling the speech frequencies out of the mix without making everything else sound harsh. If you're someone who watches a lot of action or sci-fi, the Dolby Atmos and DTS support on this model is a real draw. The bar can bounce sound off the ceiling and walls to simulate height, and in a room with a modestly reflective ceiling I heard the familiar whoosh of a spaceship flying overhead. It wasn't a full-blown overhead speaker, but the effect was convincing enough that I didn't feel like I was missing a whole layer of audio. That's a practical strength. You get a taste of true Atmos without the cost and hassle of ceiling speakers. Bass is where many soundbars stumble, especially when the subwoofer is hidden away. The Bar 1000 MK2 comes with a wireless sub that plugs into a wall outlet, and the unit is surprisingly unobtrusive. In my testing, the low end was tight enough for movie explosions but still blended well with music. The sub didn't dominate the room, which is a common complaint for people who want punchy bass but don't want to feel like the floor is shaking. If you're the type who likes to feel the rumble in a thriller, you'll appreciate that the sub can be turned up a notch without drowning out dialogue. Connectivity can be a deal-breaker. This JBL bar offers HDMI eARC, an optical input, and Bluetooth, plus a dedicated TV and music mode on the remote. I paired it with my Fire TV stick, and the sync was essentially instant, no lip sync issues, which is a real pain point with cheaper models. The remote itself is straightforward, a volume wheel, a few mode buttons, and a mute that actually mutes the sub when you need it for late-night TV. There's a slight learning curve if you want to dive into the custom EQ settings through the JBL app, but for most users the preset modes cover the basics. Now, who should actually buy this? If you already have a decent TV and are looking to upgrade your audio without buying a full home theater receiver and a set of satellite speakers, the Bar 1000 MK2 fits nicely. It's especially good for people who enjoy binge-watching series where dialogue clarity is crucial, or for occasional movie nights where you want that big screen feel. The 4K HDR video pass-through means you don't have to sacrifice picture quality to get the audio upgrade. The included 3-year Amber protection plan also gives a bit of peace of mind if you're worried about accidental damage, which is a nice perk for families with kids or pets. On the flip side, there are scenarios where this bar might be overkill or simply not the right match. If you live in a tiny studio apartment where the TV is only a few feet away, you probably won't notice the multidirectional sound as much, and a lower-priced bar could suffice. Also, if you're an audiophile who expects a true surround sound system with dedicated rear speakers and a high-end AV receiver, the Bar 1000 MK2 will feel like a stepping stone rather than the final destination. The Atmos effect, while present, isn't a full replacement for ceiling speakers, so hardcore gamers looking for pinpoint positional audio might still prefer a dedicated surround setup. One practical weakness I ran into is the placement of the subwoofer's power cable. Since the sub is wireless for the audio signal but still needs a wall outlet, you end up with a cord that can be a little unsightly if you don't have a nearby power strip. It's not a deal breaker, but it does mean you might need to plan a little cable management if aesthetics matter to you. Another point to consider is the TVs.